Hi everybody, it is Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center in Far West, Texas. Minus Eco, the Eco Watchdog, because we're in the greenhouse and she has the finesse of a tank. So she would come in here and stomp everything to pieces. So we'll leave her out of this one. But I thought today that I would do a tour of the greenhouse. You know, I'm not a plant expert, but as I've seen, a lot of the people on YouTube that say they're plant experts, they're not really. They've got bad information, or, well, this is the first time I planted this, so we'll see how it does. You know, I'm trying to learn about something. I don't want to know from somebody else who's planting for the first time. But anyway, this greenhouse has been here now for 4 years. I don't believe it's 4 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it's been 4 years. And it's, the aquaponics part of it is mature. The plants, of course, we rotate the crops. And just to recap, last summer, the summer of 2020, was so hot, and I didn't have a fan in here. I thought that the pitch of my roof with the vents up high would create a solar chimney effect. That didn't work. Temperature hit 120. Most things either didn't fruit or failed entirely. Well, then comes winter. I planted a few things. February, we get this massive cold snap where the temperature here hit 9 degrees. I was so frustrated and upset, I didn't set my heater, didn't turn my heater on. I lost most everything. Well, it came back, planted kind of like this with the seeds, so I don't know what, I didn't know what was growing in where, you know what I meant. Anyway, so I just waited for the things to come up, and it was kind of disorganized. Promised myself, and I think I promised you when I started the videos again, that I would get, got here, fly, I would get the greenhouse far more organized. Well, I have, and I've cut a lot of things back, and I thought, well, I'll give you a little tour of it right now, and then we'll come back in about 6 weeks, just before Thanksgiving, I guess, so that's probably closer to 8 weeks. And we'll come back and I'll show you the difference in the greenhouse. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to go over some of the things that we've learned over the 4 years through trial and error that grows in the ground, grows in the aquaponics. So we're going to get into that. Had a disaster here that I do need to tell you about. We had a lot of trouble growing tilapia. And I guess, you know, sometimes you're just thick-headed. I kept adding, especially during that 19-month drought, we didn't have fresh water to spare because I was hauling it, and it was chlorinated anyway because I was hauling it from the Berlinguer water supply. So I would take the gray water that we had and add the gray water to the tank. Well, the tilapia didn't do real well and ended up dying with the cold snap anyway. And it still didn't click with me about the gray water. But there's plenty of water now. But last week I was watering some of the plants using gray water, and something came up anyway. I set the hose down in the water system and got totally distracted, forgot about it for about 3 hours, or close to 400 gallons of water, gray water, got in here, loaded with detergent. Long story short, all of my koi, I replaced the tilapia with koi. All of my koi that were about that big died. New koi are coming today. As I'm doing this, they're on the way from UPS, and we're going to start all over again with koi. But any of you that are interested in aquaponics, use fresh water, which you probably already know. Don't use any gray water just because of the detergent factor, and quite possibly the bacteria. I'm going to get that fly, I promise. Anyway, let me get behind the camera and show you a little tour of the greenhouse. Right here on the table we have today's harvest. This is the rest of my fennel. The fennel struggled through the summer because I didn't realize they were a cool weather crop. Same thing with kohlrabi. So I have one kohlrabi that's harvestable, and I'm not sure about the others. A couple of tomatoes. We'll get into tomatoes in a minute. This right here, guess what it is? Give up? Okay. Sunchokes, or Jerusalem artichokes. Planted a whole lot of them. These are not even mature yet. They're perfectly edible, but they're not as mature as they would get. I just had to make a little bit of room and get rid of some of the plants. We're having a horrible issue this year with whiteflies. I've tried everything. I've tried 7. There's the 7 sitting there. 7 didn't really knock them down, and it's a chemical that I didn't want to continue to use and use and use. I got this horticultural oil and these sticky fly traps. Whiteflies love yellow. And believe it or not, you know, organic stuff I don't have a lot of faith in, but organic stuff has knocked them down quite a bit. But still, I had to trim my tomatoes. I'll get into that in a minute. Let's see. Sunchokes. Oh, these. These are the mystery pepper. Now we know that they're yellow ghost peppers. These are getting dried. We're making a ristra, I think it is. R-I-S-T-R-A, ristra. It's just that hanging thing of peppers that you see a lot of times in Mexican and Southwestern videos. So anyway, that was just today's harvest. I can't figure out why the tomatoes in the aquaponics are splitting. I'll look into that in a little bit. So, here we are over here. This is our 900-gallon tank. No fish. They're coming, and they're all going to go in here. We'll grow them up quite a bit, and then we'll move them to the upper pond. This is a yellow pear cherry tomato. This grows like a weed. You wouldn't believe this, but I cut this entirely back to the ground. I think there were like 4 leaves on it 6 weeks ago, and look at, now not a single tomato on it because of the heat. Now the plants won't fruit in this heat, because I still couldn't get the heat much under 100, but at least it wasn't 120. It was a volunteer that came up, and I just left it grow. Over here is another volunteer tomato, and you can see there is a little tomato on the plant. That is a big boy tomato. They don't grow big like big boys here. Hanging from the ceiling out of my reach is what's left of my long beans. They ran their course. And down here I have another mystery pepper. I know they're peppers, I just don't know what they are. And they haven't done well because they were shaded by the tomatoes. I've cut that tomato plant way down 6 weeks ago, and it also came back. The leafy thing is a galangal, or a Thai ginger. We got a pepper plant there that I, again, had to cut back. The whiteflies were terrible. And I've just planted some of the radishes there. We have 3 kinds of radish. We have the show-going radish, which are softball-sized daikons, French breakfast, and black giant, I'm saying that, German giant, and they're a black radish. Of course, in the shallow tank, we can't put any big fish in here because it's only about 7 inches deep. But we have the lotus coming up. We've got the Nile palm. Kangkong is struggling. I believe the whiteflies finally got to the Kangkong. I'm going to address that with horticultural spray. Then these beds here, for the 4 years we've had the garden, the greenhouse, they have been tomato beds. And I believe that we might have depleted the soil terribly. It was a combination of either depleted soil, no fertilizer in it, and or whiteflies. So what I've done is I've cut them way back. Now these 2, we don't know if they'll make it. The other ones will definitely make it. 6 weeks, they'll be back blooming. The temperature will be on the ideal range for tomatoes, and we'll have tomatoes. I've cut everything back just now today, even the ones in the aquaponics, which I'll show you in just a second. These are sunchokes here. You can see they're a member of the sunflower family, and they've got beautiful little miniature-looking sunflower blooms. And underground is where all the magic happens. They have the most beautiful tubers that are just delicious, either cooked, roasted, sauteed, or eaten raw in salads. And Debbie will highly recommend eating them raw in salads, pickling them a little bit, and eating them in salad. All these tomatoes were up to the ceiling. You can see all the strings hanging from the tomatoes. All these tomatoes I just cut way back. We're going to treat them with horticultural oil to get rid of the whiteflies. And then in this corner of this float bed, I've got 4 Swiss chard plants. Believe it or not, these are over 2 years old. I believe they're into their 3rd year now and still producing. So I've just kind of left them. But we started planting for the fall garden. I'm going to get to this end where I can show you. You just kind of get a look at things. I started planting for the fall garden about a month ago. And what I started with was way back there, little gem lettuce. I had some parsley in that planted. Now parsley doesn't seem to like the aquaponics all that well. What loves aquaponics is pak choy or bok choy. That's what's in this bed right here is bok choy. That's going to grow up and be harvestable over a period of, 2 months. Green romaine lettuce. Not a whole lot of it, probably 25 plants, but green romaine lettuce. And these are things that I'm sprouting. Now this is some of the rock wool cubes that didn't sprout. You can see some of them are now sprouting. And then that's, I know what's what. This is pak choy, this is assorted lettuce. We don't know what kind of lettuce, but we know that it's assorted lettuce. Starting my cauliflower for the winter right in here. These will go in soil. And I've got moringa trees that I'm trying to grow. I want to put 2 or 3 moringa trees here in the greenhouse to grow up so that we have a ready source of moringa. And so I've got 2 trees right here now. I've got 1 planted in the bed already. And I've got 1 coming up hydroponically, which is kind of interesting. As you pan down a little, you see these little sticks right there. That's lemongrass. We haven't been able to grow it from seed, so I got some lemongrass cuttings. You're supposed to root them in water until you see green growth. So the roots are growing, there's no green growth yet. And then back here, right there, supposedly you can root moringa from, you just cut a stalk off and root it. So we're trying to root that one. Right now, no success. Again, the green romaine. These are Chiltepin peppers or bird's eye peppers. It grows wild in this area from over that whole tier of southern Arizona all the way around to the Big Bend. They are a protected species of pepper. These are wild collected, but again, they won't be wild. I've got 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 5 is just coming up. These haven't been planted long enough to sprout. But I'm hoping to get about 20 plants because, as I said, they're native. That means I can plant them around here. I'm going to try cabbage in aquaponics this year. So we have Copenhagen Cabbage started. This is the hydroponic moringa right here. That 1 came up. The others, they're about to the point where they either are not going to come up or they should sprout pretty quickly. Saved some basil, so I have basil ready to harvest quite a bit of that. This is assorted lettuces that Debbie and I had from, 12, 13 years ago. Still viable seeds, but we don't know which lettuces they are. And then these right here, of course, are little gem lettuce. And little gem is one of our favorites. Now coming back over here, we're going to expand this bed. You can see the border with the black tubing. That's actually going to be the bed border, so there'll be a narrow walkway. What I've got ready to plant there right now is kohlrabi, because I have so much kohlrabi. We'll plant the kohlrabi in the front of the garden all the way along here. Let it grow. And the sunchokes are going to be replanted into this bed only, and this is where we'll have the sunchokes. They're very invasive. You never can get them all. They'll just keep regrowing and regrowing and regrowing. So we'll just keep planting them there and harvest, whatever volunteers. Where we don't want it, we'll move or harvest. The last of the walking onions, they're okay, but they didn't really thrive here. These are the last, and we're eating them slowly. That's the sunchoke. That'll stay right where it is. Back here, the mystery peppers, which turned out to be red and yellow ghost pepper, with some eggplant. I know I'm shaking the camera here. And a little eggplant right there. At 2 only here because it's, again, too hot. Sunchokes. And my 2 plumaria trees. This is a Hawaiian tree. It doesn't give me any fruit. It's just pretty to look at. You can even see as I'm wiggling around here some of the white flies. Sunchokes again. come around here. This is the upper bed. Now we're not going to put the fish in there because you see how fast that water runs over the spillway. These fish are only going to be 2 inches long, and we don't want them in there because they just don't have enough depth in the middle pond to grow. So we'll wait till we get about 4 inches of growth here. Put half of the fish in here and half will be in the lower tank. Decided to grow parsley and dill in containers this year. Parsley and dill are doing quite well. Kohlrabi, no good because it's a winter crop, and so it's not bad. More dill, more parsley. And then right here is a surprise. Any of you in the Southwest are familiar with a golden barrel cactus. I thought they were very difficult to propagate, and turns out that they're not that difficult. These were the first ones that we grew. They're of varying sizes. Now this one here, these two, really need to be put in the ground, and they keep washing out. That's the difficult thing, is they keep washing, not washing, but laying down when I water them too hard. That won't hurt them as they grow though, but these are golden barrel. This is a money-making thing. I can sell these golden barrels in a year and a half when they hit 6 inches. I can sell them for $35 each wholesale. Now, that's not much money there. But what you didn't see was way over on the other side, the 500 other ones that are also growing. So 35 times 500, now you're talking about some real money, if they grow. Again, that's an if. Kale that's struggling. I don't know if we'll be able to plant the kale this transplanted or not. I don't have potting soil to transplant the kale with, and I won't have it for a week. So if these will hang in for a week, we'll be all right. So that would be typically what we have in the greenhouse. But I'm going to expand the greenhouse out here through what was the French doors. And I'm going to take it along this fence line to that utility pole, from the utility pole all the way to the corner there, and from the corner to the back, actually the front of the hay barn. So that will more than double the size of the greenhouse. I'm not going to use random windows like this as I rebuild it. I'm going to use only the polycarbonate panels for the sides and the roof. But we are going to expand it. And I may leave this section open, in other words, not enclosed, to grow our fruit trees. But for right now, I've got these containers here. There's a IBC tote that died, and I cut it in half to use as a planter. Got that old corner bathtub we've had for, gosh, 5-6 years. And I've got everything planted. A little novelty here, giant cabbage. These are those cabbages you see that weigh 100 pounds. Won't get to be 100 pounds here in the desert. Nothing gets really big. But these two beds are planted with giant cabbage just this week, so they're not going to be sprouting right away. We need cooler weather than right now. These are watermelon radish. Now they're a daikon relative, so they'll be like a daikon, but when you cut them open, they look like a watermelon inside. And they're a novelty that happens to taste really good, grows very easily. I've got 3 kinds of broccoli in this, in here. We'll be thinning them down, so we'll have about 30 plants, maybe 20 in there. And in here I have regular Copenhagen cabbage. They haven't sprouted yet. They will, but they haven't sprouted yet. We need a little bit cooler weather for them to really take off. I've got daikons in here. We'll thin these daikons down to 1 every 2 inches, so I don't know how many that'll give me, but a lot less than what you see there. Saving this for some Japanese carrots that come. Japanese carrots grow to over 1 foot in length, and I've got some real loose material in here. I'm going to tell you what the material is in a minute. That one I forget what I'm planting in there. I'm planting something in there. And I've got fennel around the outside here and a few kohlrabis and a Mexican herb called cilantro. It's related to cilantro, but you won't be eating it raw. You do have to saute it, cook it a little bit. Cilantro, strong taste, very pleasant, but strong taste. Now, as far as these beds go, and that one I showed you where we're going to be planting the sunchokes, what I've done is collected horse manure from Nemo. Now Nemo craps. We don't pick it up. The little blackbirds come and scatter it all over, and it dries up, and it doesn't really compost, but it's there. I raked it all up, and all these containers are 2/3 full of horse manure. Then we have the dead fountain that's in the poultry yard. The dead fountain, the poultry have been, everybody's been pooping in it. That is composted real nicely, so we have a layer of that compost above the horse manure, and then normal potting soil. I've done that in these and in that bed inside, and I'm carefully planting things that will like the nitrogen in these. But this is kind of an experiment. We had bad luck with the garden when it was exposed to the sun the first year we were here, but I was trying to grow it in the summer. So we'll see what happens now. There's some stuff I forgot. These are tomatillos. Now they have grown nicely, but they're not producing fruit. They've got plenty of flowers. I try to hand pollinate them like you would hand pollinate tomatoes and peppers. So far nothing. The only thing I can say is it was way, way too hot. And then in all of these little pots here, these are more, I'm telling you, about 450, 500 more golden barrel cactus. As they get bigger, we'll transplant them. Cilantro, that's going to need to be thinned, but we use a lot of cilantro here in not just Mexican, but South American style cooking. This is the Moringa tree I mentioned. The reason that you see the yellow leaves, the door popped open and the goats and chickens got in here and went on a rampage. Luckily they headed just this way. They didn't go, they stayed in this area. But one of the things they did was pull up the Moringa tree. Now you can transplant a Moringa tree once when it's little. They don't like to be transplanted. So when they pulled it up and I replanted it, it thought it got transplanted. It may come back, it may not, but I ended up putting 3 Moringa trees in here. So I may have 3 that I'll just kind of tie up and braid and make them look kind of cool. Assorted peppers. Got jalapenos, poblanos, and regular green and red. Now the goats fell in love with those and ate quite a bit of that down. But the jalapenos, they don't get a whole lot bigger than that. They'll go to about 4 inches. But they are hot. I mean, they are habanero hot. Unbelievable how hot they are. I had 17 fava bean seeds. I planted those, they've come up, but honestly there isn't enough sun here in this corner. So the plan for this corner is to put artificial grow lights in, another float bed, 2 float beds, that will be fed by a fountain that'll be in this corner here. The beds will go in this direction and in this direction and drain into and connect to the main system with grow lights on top of them. I'm hoping that that'll work, but that's a money thing that we just don't have the money for, so that's like down the road, I would say a year. And that's the tour. That's everything. The greenhouse looks a little sorry right now, but trust me, it's a hell of a lot better than it was 6 months ago. I'm really pleased with the way it's going, the way the fall garden is going in. I think it's going to be great. We'll update you guys closer to Thanksgiving just to let you get a look at what happens between now and then, because our heat is broken, so we're temperatures in the low 90s now, next week in the middle 80s to the high 80s. So great growing weather for us here. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to take my harvest and get ready to make dinner with it. And until next time, Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center in Far West Texas saying, see you guys later.